I've got a plan for you. I've got a way for you to go that's so much better than yours. I'm going to tell you something that's a lot easier said than done. I'm going to tell you something that's a lot easier to hear than to believe, but it's true. God's timing, you're going to hear this 100 times in church worlds, God's timing is never late. It's always perfect. Some of you may agree, disagree, okay? Because you're like, nope, I need this to happen now, okay? But God's timing is always perfect. I guarantee you, if you are new in the faith, trust this over time, and you'll see it. If you've been saved for a long time, or you are around other believers and hear their stories, there's story after story after story of, wow, what I was going through at the time, I didn't think, would turn out a certain way, but by obeying God and putting my trust in Him, it went away. That was so much better than I ever even saw it coming, because I trusted and I obeyed God's calling in my life and to do what He did. Think about the difference, man. I want to be prepared. I want to be willing to be used from God at all times. I want to compare today to last week a little bit. Mary had no clue that she would be pregnant. She had not asked God, Lord, please give me a baby so Joseph can question what I've been doing, okay? God, please, nothing like that, all right? She was not praying for it. She was an ordinary person, as we talked about, and bam, God comes down and says, through Gabriel, this is what's going to happen. Now, compare that to today's story. Zechariah had been praying for this. A lot of you have been praying for a certain thing for a long time. And he's here to tell you, man, this isn't going to be the best Christmas ever because all your prayers are answered today or at our Christmas Eve service or whatever. It's going to be the best Christmas ever because you're going to choose with today's sermon to say, God, I am going to trust you and I'm going to obey you even if I don't see it happen. Even if it seems impossible. This is how it's going to happen. I believe in you. We're not going to be like Zechariah. We're not going to be questioning him or doubting God's faith. Miss Terry's not here right now, but she actually lost her voice this week, okay? And I thought, wow, what a committed staff person to take your voice away so I can use her as an analogy for today's sermon, right? That's so perfect timing. But no, she said it wasn't because she disobeyed Billy, all right? She just lost her voice. But think about this. Zechariah could have, just picture this, okay? So this time of year right now, I am like, jacked up on Christmas spirit, okay? Like I told y'all last week, I'm that annoying guy. Man, at the parade, you're going to see me just, woo, can't wait, right? Well, imagine this. Imagine what Zechariah coming out of the temple could have been like if he would have just believed right away and been able to share with all those people outside, the Lord has spoken to me. Listen, we're going to have a baby. God, look at what God is going to do. He's claimed it. His name will be John. This is done. And imagine what could have erupted there. Imagine that moment, what that could have been. But because of his lack of faith, because of his lack of trusting in God and obeying Him, he couldn't even speak. He had to come out and try to show him something. They're all like, you're tripping. There's got something happening there, but what's going on? Think about what he missed out on. God doesn't need us to be perfect. He doesn't need us to make up for all the mistakes we've ever made. He needs us to be willing to trust Him and obey Him, and then He will always do His part. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6 says this, and without faith, it is impossible to please God. Because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him. Man, to question yourself this week, man, we got a busy time coming up. You got all this stuff going on. You got Christmas Eve a week away. You got Christmas Day 8 days away. You got all this going on. What if you spent this week saying, God, how much faith do I have in you? God, show me the areas of my life. We're going to do a song again at the end. It's our theme song for the month. And man, it was powerful last week and it was going to be powerful again today. But we're going to ask you to say, God, can you say, Lord, here's my heart. Here's everything I have to offer you. The areas of my heart that I question you, the areas of my heart that I think this is impossible, I'm going to replace the doubt with trust and obedience. Or am I willing to do that this week as things come up? God will always give us an opportunity to do what is possible, and then He'll do the impossible. Think about many, many stories in the Scriptures. I want us to focus on one, maybe two, but think about the blind man, one of the blind men that Jesus healed. All right? The story goes like this. There's a blind man, and Jesus comes up, and He rubs mud in his eyes. And then He does something that He'll always do for us. He does His part to say, boom, and then He gives instruction. All right? What's the instructions to Zechariah? To name his son John. Right? So He says, I'm going to do the impossible, but you've got to do your part, the possible part for you, which is follow my instructions. Right? So there's a blind man that Jesus heals when He comes, and He puts the mud in his eyes, and He tells him, go into the river, go into the water there, and wash the mud away, and then you will be healed. Just like with us, God says, you do the part that's in your control. You do the part that you're able to. You're able to go to the water, and you're able to follow my instructions. You do that, and then you'll receive the blessing of your sight. You'll receive the miracle that I've done for you. Now imagine the blind man in particular. Man, did he see that Jesus put the mud on his eyes? No. How could he? He was blind. He could have easily said, yeah, that's stupid. I ain't doing that. Start wiping that mud off, right? Jesus, why would I do that? He could have said, Jesus, that ain't even you. That's my cousin down the street. Man, they threw mud on me. They're trying to trick me. I'm going to go down in this water, and there's going to be 5 videos on Facebook of me rinsing my eyes for no good reason, right? Okay, no, he didn't say that. But many of us feel that way. Is this a trick? Is this a scheme? Whatever. What it took was Jesus did his part and said, if you obey me, you will receive your sight. Think about the story of the 10 lepers that were healed. God gave them a specific instruction. Before their skin was cleared, before they looked like they were healed, he said, go to the temple and be deemed clean by the priest. Now, if you think about the historical context of that, that's crazy because they showed up to him looking like they still had leprosy. They could have easily said, well, wait, God, can you completely cleanse me first? Can you do it? Obey. You've got to do your part and obey right away. There's a phrase we use with Grace, and I'm sure I got it from my mom in the daycare world, but the phrase for a toddler is obey right away, and there's more time to play. All right? Everybody say it with me. Obey right away, and there's more time to play. Obey right away, and there's more blessings coming your way. Believe that. I just came up with that right now. Take that to the bank, all right? Let's pick up our story in verse 57. When it was time for Elizabeth to have her baby, everybody say baby. Baby. She gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown her great mercy, and they shared her joy. On the 8th day they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father, Zechariah. Because that was the custom, right? That was what they were going to do. But his mother spoke up and said, no, he is to be called John. They said to her, there is no one among your relatives who has that name. There's no one in your family tree that has the name John. So therefore, customarily, you can't name him John. You got to name him some name in your family tree. When they made signs to his father to find out what he would like to name the child, can you picture that? You know, in my household or whatever, it could be like, Hope, you got to do this. Nope. Hope tells them God's calls it. Well, yeah, well, I'm going to go ask Nate. Nate's going to say different. He's going to say, we're going to name him John, right? So here they go. They say, okay, Elizabeth's tripping in. She's not following customary ways of life. Let's go ask John. This is the chill bone part of the story for me. Then they made signs to his father, Zechariah, to find out what he would like to name the child. And you can see them like, he's going to write Zechariah, he's going to write his name, she does, whatever. He asked for a writing tablet, and to everyone's astonishment, he wrote, his name is John. What's incredible to that is it's not a question of his name is going to be John. It's not a question of it's supposed to be John. Zechariah has this come to Jesus moment right here where he says, I am going to obey. God told me through Gabriel that we're going to have this son. We've had this son. His name is to be John. Those are God's instructions, not man's instructions. I don't live for man. I don't live to please you. I don't live to go by all the customs and things I'm supposed to. I am going to be obedient to God and God alone. And his name is John. Immediately, his mouth was open and his tongue set free, and he began to speak, praising God. His name is John. This went against all the culture and the customs, but directly obeyed God. If we could capture that moment, if we could see what that looks like in our own lives, to say, you know what, I'm supposed to do this, I'm supposed to do that. Couples, man, that aren't married, you're supposed to be physical together, you're supposed to live this way, you're supposed to talk this way, you're supposed to look this way, act this way, your flesh, the sin in you, that all these things that want you to do that. But what area of your life, you fill in the blank, is God saying no? Your flesh wants to do this, your desires wants to do this, society's telling you should do it this way. I am telling you, I am giving you these directions. I am giving you my word to show you. No, you want to do it your way and live in sin? You want to do it your way and not be obedient to me? Let's wait and see how that turns out. That's not going to be well. God is saying, you wonder why you're stressed? You wonder why there's so much chaos? There's all this? Look at your own heart. Look at your own mind. Have you been obedient to me? How many of you seen the movie Meet the Parents? Anybody? Only Nate can go from being sexually pure to meet parents, right? But there's a part in one of the original movies, I think it was the very first one, where the dad, the future father-in-law, comes in and he talks to the future son-in-law about the circle of trust, right? And he makes it very clear in this clip. I don't have it today, but he makes it very clear in this clip. He says, now let me tell you something, right? What's the actor's name? What is it? Ben Stiller, right? That's being told. And Robert De Niro, yeah. Robert De Niro in his Robert De Niro voice, right? He's got the top hat on, very intimidating, okay? And he says to him, let me tell you something. Have you ever heard of the circle of trust? And he tells him this. He goes, if you go outside of my circle of trust and my family, you never get back in this circle. Ever. Never, ever, ever. And he's having this awesome moment, and he's making this great analogy about the circle of trust. And he's doing it, and Ben Stiller has that Nate Didway moment where he's like, I have no clue what you're talking about right now, right? Like, I'm not following you at all. The moral of that story was, in our family, you treat my daughter well, you do what you're supposed to be doing, and you're in this circle. If I can trust you, you got it made. If I can't, you're out. Well, I'm here to tell you, that is not how God operates, okay? But I do want you to think of the circle of the impossible, okay? And I want you to picture this. If I drew a big old circle up here right now, I want you in your mind's eye, and even if you have something to write down, or if you've got a tablet you can write with, I want you to draw a big circle, and on the very top of that circle, I want you to put the word, or picture the word impossible. Impossible. How it relates to our story with Zechariah. On top of his circle at that moment of his life was that they were going to have a baby. Okay? That was the impossible thing. You fill in that blank. What's impossible? What do you see that there's no way that God can do? And I want you to picture it on top of this circle. This is a cycle, we call it the cycle of life. We need to follow this circle in our daily walk with Christ every moment of every day. So on the very top is something impossible. And I want you to think about what God is doing is saying, hey, here's something impossible. There's no way is going to be your reaction to be able to do this. But here's the thing. On top of the circle says impossible. To the right of the circle, if you go down clockwise, it's going to say the word, and I'm going to get it mixed up, I'm doing exactly right, the word trust. So you got impossible and you got trust. When Zechariah first heard the impossible news, his circle stopped there. He didn't make it down to the trust factor, okay? He stopped there and said there's no way. He doubted. He didn't have the trust. When God is going to do something impossible in your life, when God is calling you to go a certain direction, when God is telling you to stay away from sin or whatever it is in your life, you must trust that that's the best plan. You must trust that that's exactly what God is calling you to do, and even if it doesn't make sense, you're going to go there and do it. At the very bottom of the circle, so you got impossible, you're going to have a baby. You've got trust, there's no way he doesn't trust. Elizabeth did, and guess what? She got pregnant. Then at the very bottom, the obey part. This is the hard part. Man, I wish our circle was a half circle, because this is where it comes in. The analogy I heard was used like this. When God calls us to trust and obey, and as we shared with the blind man and the different ones in the story where God gives instruction, when he gives you instruction, he wants you to do your part, the part that's possible. I'm a people pleaser, I'm a fixer, so let's say there's someone in my life that I'm like, well, I got to fix them, right? I got to do this and this and this and this. And God's like, you know what? That part's not up to you. Why don't you do the part that you are able to control? Why don't you love that person as much as you can love them? Why don't you serve that person as much as you can serve them? See, we want to say, well, this has to happen, and it's all out of our control. We can't make someone. Let's say you have someone in your life, in your heart. Man, why is God telling me to go here? I have no idea. But maybe there's someone in your life that's gay. Maybe there's someone in your life that is having sex outside of marriage. Maybe there's someone in your life that is not following Christ. And you think, well, Lord, you got to fix that person. You got to tell them. And maybe God's like, you know what? Them coming to me is between me and them. I got that. Why don't you do the part that is in your control? Why don't you reach out to them and show them love and mercy and kindness? Why don't you reach out to them and just say, hey, I don't know where you've been. I don't know what you're in the middle of, but I just want you to know I love you. I want to hang out with you. I want to get to know you. See, we want to do the obey part by saying, well, God, I got to do this and this. And God's like, that's not your part. The instruction for the blind man was to go down to the water. He could go to the water and rinse his eyes, but he couldn't heal himself. And God is calling us to do the same thing. If God is calling you to do something, do what you can control. Do what is your part, and leave the rest to the Holy Spirit. Zechariah just simply had to say, Gabriel, thank you. Thank you. We've been praying for that for so long. I'm so glad that God has heard my prayers. I'm so glad he's going to do this. And then his part would have been to go out and to exclaim what God is going to do and to do what part he could control. Instead, he doubted. So that very bottom of the circle, man, that obey part is tough. But I want you to put this in the bank. I want you to take this to heart. When you do the possible, which is your part, God will always come through and do the impossible, which we have no control of. As we look at that circle, if you have the impossible on top, you have the trust at the right, and you have the obey on the bottom. That leads you to that final spot on the circle that hopefully is a pattern that continues to go. And the big word to the left of the circle would be blessing. You start to receive the blessings. You start to see the plan come together. You start to see what God is doing and what he's already done. Think about Zechariah and Elizabeth. The impossible, have a baby. The trust, I believe it's going to happen. The obey, we will name him John. That is their obedience. That is what God has called them to do. And then, wow, chill moment number 2, the blessing of this baby that is born to them and goes on to be one of the greatest characters in all of the Bible to prepare the way for Jesus and ultimately baptize Jesus himself and to bring families and people back to say, there is a Messiah coming. God has called me to give you this message. Come, I promise you, these are the things that need to happen. I want you to keep this in mind. As you think about that circle of life, as you think about having the trust and the obedience and what God is calling you to do and then receive those blessings, the blessings don't mean that now you have a picture-perfect life. Remember, this time of season to have the best Christmas ever, we're embracing the mess. We're embracing the chaos. Look at our theme image, if you will, and that's what it's about. It means, though, it doesn't mean that everything lines up and is perfect, but it means that he trusts you enough to bless you with a sense of purpose, a sense of joy, and a sense of peace. See, God's not going to just give it to us without us doing our part, man. We've got to be willing to say, Lord, I'm going to obey you. I'm going to have enough trust in you. And then he entrusts us with that blessing. He entrusts us with how we can handle that. I'm going to ask you guys, man, come on back up. And again, as we continue the best Christmas ever, as we think about today when things seem impossible, my prayer is simply this, man, that God would just show you the area of your life on that circle. Oh, wow. You can put my face in your circle if you want, because that looks beautiful. If your circle has a beard, that's okay. But I want you to take this circle, the circle of life, and I want you to ask God, what area in that circle am I missing out on? What area in that circle, what area when it comes to trust, when it comes to obey, when it comes to the impossible part, and even the blessing part. See, we'll focus on that part pretty easy. We'll say, well, easy, Nate. I'm missing out that blessing. I've been praying about something, and that part of the circle has not come true. I've not received that blessing. As I said before, maybe somebody, for you to go witness to or talk to, you haven't even done your part. You're just mad because they're living in sin. You're just mad because of whatever. And God's like, well, what about the right side of the circle? What about the bottom? Where have you trusted me? Where have you obeyed me? And you're going to hear this a lot today. You're going to hear this. You heard this last week. You're going to hear this Christmas Eve. Please come Christmas Eve. It's going to be awesome. But here's the thing. It really, I told y'all, late night in my living room, man, this song, this is what it all comes down to. If you're not willing to give everything, if you're not willing to say, God, here's my heart, not just my part of me, then you're not going to be able to do that full circle. You're not going to receive the blessing, the thing that God has called you to give. Some of you need to stop some things you're doing right now. You just need to cut it out. You know it's sin, you know it's wrong, and you're not receiving the blessings that God has in store for you because of the way you're living. Shots fired, but that's what God is saying right now. Here's the other thing. There's a lot of people in your circle. There's a lot of people. I said this last week. I believe it's on my heart. In order for Lifespring to grow, in order for Lifespring to break through, it's got to start with us in this room. It's got to start with us in this room saying, God, I am yours. Here's everything in me. And when spiritual breakthrough takes place here, spiritual breakthrough is going to take place outside of here. Christmas Eve service has now become even more than Easter, where more unchurched people will come to a Christmas Eve service than they do on Easter. Over the last few years, that shift has happened, right? And so there are literal people that you're going to hand cards out to. There are literal people that you're going to invite. I know of like 4 of them already in my heart that Hope has talked to and that I've talked to that don't know God, that have said, I'm hurting a lot right now, and I don't want to be alone. I'll be there Christmas Eve because I need something. They don't even know what it is yet. There are people out there that need to come and experience God in a powerful, mighty way. And he's saying, hey, give me your heart. Give me everything you have. And the next Sunday we'll talk about the ultimate gift of your entire life that these people can give and what you can. So as we sing this morning, we do this each week. If you want to pray by yourself, come on over here to this side, my right, your left. If you want to pray with somebody, man, come on over here, and we have people that will put their hands on you and just love you and pray with you and talk to you. If you need a handle in your seat, wherever. But I want us to all, my prayer and my challenge is that every person that comes on a regular basis will be able to sing this next song with complete freedom and say, God, here it is. You have it all. It's yours.
today about having the faith to be able to receive the blessing that God has for us. It's such an amazing thing that He takes the impossible, the things that we can't even fathom in our own minds, and that He's able to just say, watch this. If we just have that trust, if we can just say, just let go, just open our arms, just open our hearts and our minds to Him and say, okay, God. It's good if we can do it before we get to our wits' end, but a lot of times that's where we are. When we say that, we're at our wits' end. When we say, I can't do anything else, it's no longer me. It has to be you. And at that point, He's able to say, okay, let's go. So just take what you've learned today, and I hope and pray that you will apply it to your lives this week. That you will ask God to begin to help you. If you don't even know what that looks like to trust God, if you've trusted in yourself for so long in so many areas of your life, it's really hard to resist the urge to take control and to be a responsible adult. But just pray, just begin to pray, God, show me how to do this. Show me how to have this faith. Show me how to trust you. And He will. So, y'all are dismissed.
I was entertained.